Hi, I'm Evan Sanchez, and I'm a results leader that helps you break through the craposphere.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
You are listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Welcome back to another amazing episode. So stoked that you guys are here. And I am going to share another interview with a business leader from Texas. He helps people work on their mindset, become better leaders, and sell like champs. Today I have Mr. Evan Sanchez, the CEO of Springboard Consulting, a management consulting firm out of Texas. Let's jump into this interview. Evan, welcome to the show. What is up, my man?
Hey, not much. Great to be here, Jonathan. How are you today?
I am stoked to be rapping with you again. It looks like the last time we spoke was a couple months ago, so this has been a little while in the making. And let's start the listeners up with a very quick win. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
Green Light is the one that I've given out the most. It's a book by Matthew McConaughey, and that's just in the past few weeks.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering because it's a fairly new book. So what I haven't even heard anybody mention that. What is it about that book that has really inspired you to give it out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that's probably not the answer you expected me to give because obviously I'm a business consultant and I have books that I hand out to my clients. But the reason I brought that one up is just because it was very impactful for me to listen to somebody who is an actor, who is also a philosopher in a lot of ways. If you've really ever listened to him and listened to his outlook on life or his background on life, he's really a dynamic guy. And he comes from fairly reasonably humble background. He's from Uvalde, Texas. But the one thing that hit me the hardest that I've been sharing with people is he came up with this term. I don't know if he came up with it or if he just used it, but he calls it Outlaw Logic. And the Outlaw Logic was essentially some of the family ground rules, I guess you would call them, that he found growing up, right? There were the family values and it was Outlaw Logic. And so it was things like, hey, you're not supposed to do bad things, but if you do them and you don't get caught, nobody says anything. The only time you really get in trouble is when you get caught. That's when you're in for trouble, right? It's not that you did, it's that you got caught. And that's kind of the philosophy of the Outlaw Logic. And I'm a parent. So there's certain things where I tell my kids, I'm like, look, I know you're going to make bad choices, but if you get caught, you're going to get the hammer.
Nice.
And it's hard to explain that. So he has a lot of really good Outlaw Logic things in that book that I just think apply to so many different levels, because our personal lives as entrepreneurs and business owners, there's no separation between work and family. It's all part of the life that you're living. And those things are very important to helping you communicate visions, values, things like that in your business. But it's also very important at home, because if you don't have a good balance between the two, it's hard to get anything accomplished.
Now, you said balance. Do you believe that there's really balance between business and personal life?
Well, I like to accustom it to a throttle of uncomfortability. As we're moving and growing in life, we've got to have a throttle. And there's got to be times where we push a little harder, go a little faster. There's times where we got to take our foot off the gas a little bit and throttle down, maybe slow down and pay a little bit more attention to different areas of our life. So is there a balance? I don't think that there's a perfect yin and yang, if you will, but there's a constant flow of trying to maintain some high performance level state that, I term intuitive flow in my book, Sell Like a Champ.
Excellent. So let's talk about failure. And I'd like you to share with us a story of how an apparent failure turned into a later success.
Well, another story that I tell in Sell Like a Champ, I grew up If you were to ask me when I was 5, 6 years old what I was going to be when I grew up, I'd tell you I'm going to be a professional soccer player. If you asked me when I was 10, you'd get the same answer. 15, same answer. 18, same answer. All the way up until the doctor said, hey, guess what? Your knees are blown. You need knee reconstruction. You're not going to be a professional soccer player. And for me, that was like, what am I going to do now? It was, this is what I've always wanted to do. And then my fallback plan was always, well, I guess I'll go study international business because I'll be playing in Europe, making money. That was the vision. So I would make business contacts and I would study international business in college. That was kind of my fallback plan, Well, what was interesting about that is when I went through hey, you're not going to be a professional athlete, it was like, well, now what am I going to do? So I had to actually start paying attention in college and really start thinking about, okay, well, what about this international business thing? And I ended up going into psychology and becoming a personal trainer and studying sports psychology. And then I ended up developing a performance-based coaching psychology. And that performance-based coaching psychology came out of me saying, I'm no longer going to be an athlete. And I would go out into the real world and I would talk to people as a personal trainer, and people would tell me they wanted to lose 30 pounds. And I would tell them what to do and they wouldn't do it. And it was like, what the hell is your problem? You're paying me $500 a month. Here's your goal. Here's what I tell you to do. Why won't you do it? And that's where the coaching psychology came into play, because as a professional athlete or a high-level athlete, you learn to follow coaches and you learn to do what they say. And when you do what they say, you get the results. If you have the ability, everyone has the ability to lose 30 pounds. Everybody knows what to do to lose 30 pounds. It's in the doing that's the problem. So, for me, I didn't know that fallback, me being told I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, would lead me to developing a coaching psychology that essentially allows me to help athletes, leaders, salespeople, everyday salespeople overcome barriers or things that can get in the way to their own success. And a lot of the neuroscience-based psychology that we coach around now actually helps to identify some of those barriers or things that you think are failures. And then how do we flip the switch or basically turn the page so that now they become a strength rather than a weakness, or how to use them as a strength versus being overcome or impeded by a barrier.
Powerful. What would you say is the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
That's tough. I think a lot of times you want to say college. For me, because I was brought up, you should go to college. You go to college, then you'll get more opportunities. And I think that I found that to be true. I don't know that the investment itself was worth it, but I will say that the investment in time and in accomplishing the curriculum goals and building the relationships that I built in college definitely helped kind of put me in a position to be successful, even though I didn't really realize it at the time, right? It's not like I'm not looking at it from an investment in money, but an investment of time. And I think the investment of time in college was really, really worthwhile, not for just forming the relationships with people who were going to go off and they had goals, right? They had the ability to accomplish something over a 4-year period. When you're around those people and you form those long-term relationships, I think that's probably been the most worthwhile relationship or worthwhile investment, because even today, some of the people that I do business with are people that I went to college with and people that were in the fraternity, same fraternity, those types of things. Those relationships have really paid off.
There it is, the relationships. Cool. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
If we go back 5 years, I will say that one of the most impactful things that I learned, and I guess I kind of already knew this about myself in some ways, but I learned how to deal with it. And that is through utilizing some of the neuroscience-based tools that we use now. So I used to teach people about a high performance state called intuitive flow. And in order to maintain intuitive flow, I've found that you also have to maintain some high level of physical well-being, because your physical well-being balances your emotional well-being. Your emotional well-being balances your ability to focus, so your intellectual side. And then that allows you to focus on your purpose. And, your purpose is where I get into what gets you excited, what gets you passionate, what is your spiritual drive that's really pushing you through. So we talk about physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual well-being, how that applies to occupations, things like that. Well, the physical side has always been kind of the major pillar where I start people out, because it's the base pillar. And if we build a strong base, all the other pieces are stronger. Well, when I went through some neuroscience-based coaching tools, they do an assessment and they tell you things that are going on subconsciously. You don't know what you don't know, right? So one of the things that it brought up was that I operated at a high level of anxiety. And I guess I kind of knew that, because I've always kind of been a person who can get pretty intense, but I never really knew that it was high. I just knew I needed to work out. But what I found out was that you can be operating with a thought process, say, being yourself, and I can be very controlling, and I can also be very ambitious. So if I'm ambitious and I'm wanting to drive things and move things forward, you kind of give yourself some permission to be controlling, my way or the highway. What I didn't know was that those two things operating simultaneously in my subconscious, or even the effects of that as a leader on the people that I'm leading, is causing lots of stress. And when there is internal stress, stress leads to dis-ease or disease, right? So it can lead to heart attacks. It can lead to aneurysms. It can lead to all kinds of problems within your team as well, right? If you're just all about results, you can tell people you care about them all day long, but if you're truly focused on the team, you can't really be utilizing a controlling type of behavior. You really have to be utilizing some of these other leadership skills and tools and ways of getting people to support your vision and to basically be engaged at work, right? And right now they say that 33% of people say they are engaged at work. So that means that the rest of the 66% of people are not engaged at work. And that's a problem if you're a leader.
No kidding. Let's have a little fun. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
That's hard for me to say. I'm one of those people that, it's like, it depends on the outcome that you're looking for. If you're really going to characterize something as bad, I think there has to be some kind of proof behind it, because if you don't know what's really going on, or you don't know what result the person is trying to get, it's very hard to say whether something's bad. And the reason I say that is because timing matters. I do hear people say sometimes, maybe this will be one, the ways of selling have changed. If you're trying to build a sales team selling the same way that you did 10 years ago, it's just not going to work. I don't really agree with that, because at the end of the day, one of the things that we teach around sales is that sales is about building a relationship, number one, because when I go to sell somebody, I'm trying to help them. But that's the way that I'm coming about it. My philosophy is, if I'm going to sell you something, I'm giving you access to something that you want. I'm not pulling something, doing a trick, or a sleazy sales tactic or something like that. That's not my philosophy. So in the whole communication and building rapport and getting to know people, I think there's solid stuff. Like, you'd have a real hard time telling me that Zig Ziglar's sales methodologies and tools don't work today, because that's some bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's still awesome. You still listen to Zig Ziglar. Like the other day, I heard him heard one that I'd heard before, but it was dealing with what's the difference when you're dealing with the objection of price. And his example was, well, are you concerned about the price or the cost? Well, that makes you think when you get asked that question. And then he goes into, well, here's the price. You think of something cheap you buy from China. It doesn't cost much, but doesn't last long. Quality doesn't matter. Then there's cost. What does that cost you if you have to keep replacing it? And, you get into cost and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, I am willing to pay a little bit more. I'm sorry, but those kind of sales conversations are never going to go away, no matter what. And no matter how much technology is there, if you're going to sell something high ticket, something that's complex, you're going to have to be able to have a relationship and a genuine conversation of how can I help you? How can I be of service to you today to close a deal?
I like that you brought Zig up. I was wondering if that was going to make it in the conversation, but I am a fan and still listen to Zig's stuff. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. #ResultsLeaderFM. Now let's jump back into the interview. So let's go to results. And the first question I have for you under this part of the show is, why do results matter?
Well, I think that's kind of like, do you like being happy or sad? I mean, my mom, she likes Lifetime movies and makes me watch those things with her sometimes. And sometimes my wife will take me to a movie and it'll make me cry or whatever. And I walk out of there going, I hated that movie. I mean, it was good and all, but damn, I just cried the whole time. I hated that movie. Nobody likes to be sad. I mean, I get that there's a time and place for it, but nobody likes to be sad for like a day. But if you talk about being glad or happy, I'll take that for a day over being sad. And at the end of the day, that's really what results are about, right? Results are maybe this quantifiable objective that you're trying to achieve, but at the end of the day, there's some type of an emotion that's attached to that. And the very simple, basic ones are either mad, sad, or glad. And I think when you achieve results, you're glad.
I couldn't agree with you more. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think I've continued to get consistent results for my clients. I have also figured out that I have tried to modify some of the things that I do, some of my coaching methods, some of my organizational change and development methods. I've tried to modify them based upon the client. We like to say we meet the client where they are. And then from there, we help them elevate their thinking so they can elevate their business to the next level or elevate your performance to the next level, right? Based upon whatever your goals are. But one of the things that I've realized is that at the end of the day, right? I mean, you can coach somebody, but they have to be coachable. You can tell somebody what to do, but they still have to do it. They can't expect you to do everything and get all the results for them. But the biggest thing that I've found is that when I point out to somebody or a client or somebody that I'm working with, that it's going to take discipline for this next level of achievement to happen, people get scared. And I have backed off in the past where I've said, hey, we've set the goals, we've got the markers in place, and it's the day-to-day small things, whether it be building a team, whether it be managing your KPIs, whether it be working towards completing a huge marketing project, whatever. It's those day-to-day tactical, disciplinary things that you have to do in order to create the success that you want. And I've let people off where I've said, that's just them. They're just too flexible. They're not process oriented. They'll get there in time, and they don't. And it just really comes down to discipline. I even try to come up with fun ways. I tell them, hey, man, this is going to suck. So you just got to embrace the suck on this, right? Like, hey, if you're going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, this is going to suck. But at the end of the 30 days, you're going to be 30 pounds lighter, which is what you want, right? Right. Okay, so let's embrace the parts that suck, and we got to do it. And the bottom line is that I have learned to not be soft on people anymore for that, because if they can't embrace the suck, that's on them. That's not on me. And as a consultant, you kind of want to make people feel good and want to work with you. And obviously, I want return business, right? So I don't want to tell people when they're being a wuss, basically, when they need to toughen up. But ultimately, what I've figured out is that's kind of what I have to do. And sometimes people like it, and sometimes people don't like it.
That's what they're paying you for, man. That accountability. They need some honesty there, and it's good that it's good to hear you say that, and it's good for our listeners to hear you say that. Sometimes you have to push people. In fact, if they didn't need that push, why would they hire us? Is the way I look at it. We're doing them a disservice when we let them live in that fantasy land. So, what area of your business would you like better results?
For me, you and I talked about this a couple of months ago. There's always this balance of how much money do you want to make? How much money do you want to pay yourself out of your business? And a lot of times that's determined by your lifestyle that you live. And there's other people, your significant other, your children, your responsibilities to your family, whatever those may be, they're different for everybody. Those play into what you're trying to do from a business standpoint. If you're not a person who has access to capital, or who is wealthy, or just has this, if you're like trying to bootstrap a business and put it together, you can't just say, sorry, honey, there's no paycheck this month. We're putting all that money back into the business to this new marketing program, because your significant other is going to go, well, that sounds to me like you got to get a job. That's what they're going to say. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge for me in my business, is finding a way to scale that I like. Because there's other ideas, other courses, things that I've taken. They're like, oh yeah, you can scale your business with online courses and e-learning and things like that. And some of those ideas I like, and some of them I don't. I like consulting. I like working with people. I like being in front of people. I like being in front of the leaders and helping them prioritize their issues, and then making execution plans and helping get the people engaged and provide a fulfilling environment, and really helping the company grow to that next level, whether it's through operational excellence or culture engineering or some new marketing sales program, what have you. That's just what I love. I love that. And I love working with the leaders and helping them solve the complex problems. But it doesn't scale. And I've worked for some large consulting firms. One was a global consulting firm. And it's interesting because I remember when I went to work there, I had been a consultant for about 5 years on my own. And then I went to work for them, and I figured out that they had all the same problems I did on my own. And they were a $30 million global consulting firm, because what it all comes down to is recurring revenue. When you're doing project-based work, the goal is that the project is going to end. For the client, you're going to get them from one place to the next place, and that's success. That's always been the biggest challenge for me in my business. And so whether it's writing a book or starting a new digital marketing program or something to that effect, that's really what I'm focused on now. So, we created a new product or segment to Springboard Consulting this year. We call it Springboard Your Biz. So at springboardyourbiz.com, we're starting to do some of the things that I feel comfortable with, meaning you can come into a studio where we can help you shoot interviews, or we can film things for you. And then we'll come out of that and we have group coaching support where we can try and help scale that. But there's still an option for somebody to come in to the studio and get some work done if they need that, that professional level support. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do more of like the blended learning type of thing, where if they're remote and they've got some different locations and they need to access some of the learning, like from an LMS or something like that, we can help create that content and that material for them and distribute it. But again, we're still part of working kind of shoulder to shoulder with them. And I'm basically going at it from a hybrid approach, because I've had other people and courses that I've taken saying, hey, if you're ever going to scale, you're going to have to do more digitally. You're going to have to do more e-learning, and just the strict e-learning. I just don't like it. So that's what we're doing with Springboard Your Biz.
I know how you feel, brother. I remember paying some consultants and they told me I had to do a webinar, and I just couldn't do that dang webinar no matter how hard I tried. But that was the ticket, but it didn't feel right. I had to do what felt right to me. So that's awesome to hear that I'm not alone. What results are you most proud of?
I think the outside of my children, and being happily married still for 17 years.
Nice.
And coming from a good family, my parents are both still married. They're in their late 70s, early 80s. I think that was always something that was important to me from a personal standpoint. From a professional standpoint, I like the fact that the last time I worked for a Fortune 500 company was in 2007. And in 2007, that's kind of when the first real estate crash happened. And I thought that I was in control of everything and realized that I wasn't. That was a real time of, hey, what do I really want to do? I can go to work for anybody, but what do I really want to do? And I started my business and I started utilizing the coaching psychology that we developed, and we started utilizing it in different ways that were fun and interesting to me. And I started my business in 2007, and I'm still here. And after last year was questionable, man. I mean, it was like, whoo, people weren't paying for growth consulting. They were cutting everybody, and for sales, it was a bloodbath, but we found some ways to survive. And, now that things are starting to turn back around, it looks like we're going to keep on moving, and I can't wait to land about 2 or 3 more clients, and I can start playing some comeback music, right? Start pumping ourselves up again, because last year was definitely one of those things where we had to re-examine what we were doing. And just the fact that I can say, that we've been around for 13, 14, coming up on 15 years as a business, I'm pretty proud of that.
That is amazing, brother. That is amazing. So any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the results leaders out there?
I think just looking at last year and knowing that there was a few people that basically had breakout years based upon whatever industry they may have been in. I think that something like a global pandemic is not something that you can plan for, obviously. I think that falls outside of the contingency planning. But I think the biggest thing that I can say is don't get complacent in anything that you're doing. And I'm telling myself that at the same time, because I think a year and a half ago, I was like, hey, this is working pretty damn good. And I think I was getting kind of complacent. And as things started to drop off and started to wobble a little bit, and then the next thing you know, you have a global pandemic, it's like, okay, you can't be complacent. That kind of forced me to, reignite some of what I would call the fight. And I'm not saying that I wasn't driven. I'm just saying that I wasn't necessarily fighting to get up off my back. And so I think that that's what people got to try and stay hungry, even when things are going really well. And you don't have to be ridiculous about it, but I think you do have to set some good, realistic goals and keep driving forward in all of those ways, including personal development. I was watching a podcast yesterday, and the guy was interviewing a gentleman who is at about 20 million in sales with his company. And the guy had 4 coaches. He had 4 coaches that he was working with. And I don't just love to hear that because I'm a coach and a consultant and people hire me, but I'm saying, hey, this is a guy who took his business from 2.3 million to 20 million. And the guy's got 4 coaches. He's not sitting there going, okay, I'm done developing, because when you're done developing, so is your business. And a lot of times that's why I brought up the Green Lights book, right? Is that that was a book that helped me have some better conversations with personal life, which helps me free up time and energy and effort to work on my business, because everybody knows that the school calls and there's a situation with your kid, it don't matter what you're doing at work. So you got to handle those things with the same level of attention and priority. And you got to just keep fighting, even when things are going good. Because like we learned last year, they can go crazy at any moment.
I like that. We got to pull that quote, stay hungry even when things are going well. That's money there. So I know that our listeners are going to want more from you. Where can they get it?
Well, the easiest place right now is at springboardyourbiz.com. We've got a community that we've started there. We put together a lot of tools to help people break through the craposphere in 2021, because there's a ton of crap out there around social learning, business coaching, digital marketing, social media. I mean, everybody's got something that they're pushing, and there's a lot of crap messages out there. So for businesses that are really wanting to break through that craposphere and to springboard their biz to the next level, they're going to have to pay attention to their messaging, the markets they're going after, and then the methods that they're using. And we help them do that at springboardyourbiz.com. And we've actually got a community offer right now that's completely free. And inside of it, it includes specific questions based upon your level of business maturity that you can start utilizing immediately. On top of that, we've also got a channel that we started. So again, going back to what I would want to do, we started Springboard Your Biz TV at YouTube. So on YouTube, if you go to Springboard Your Biz TV, you'll be able to subscribe to that and get monthly episodes. Each month, we have what we call a business performance springboard, where we talk about a key area of business. We bring people on, we talk to them a lot like what you're doing, but then they have the community to go back and access the tools and then upgrade along the way based upon what they can afford or what level of craposphere they're trying to break through at the time.
I was wondering if the craposphere would make it onto the show, and it did. I'm glad to hear that. So this has been a total pleasure. It's been a long time in the making, and I'm glad we were able to get together and do this. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, results leaders out there. That is a wrap.
That is a wrap for another edition of resultsleader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to resultsleader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.